Hello everybody, Richard Roy 2 here. I hope you can hear me clearly. I have a little trouble with the sound of this thing. Cooling fan is so bloody loud. Anyways, good evening ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to do a little bit of a thing that I've been wanting to do for some time, and I've been putting it off and putting it off, thinking that I could do a really fantastic job of it. But unfortunately, certain things have taken precedence, and this thing is getting too far away from the time period that I had originally the event had taken place. So I thought I got to do this now, while it's still fresh enough in my mind that I can remember. Of course, I seem to be doing a better job of remembering things like this. It's a special event in my mind, and I like to call this connecting. Um, in 2010, I ended up with a hole in my roof. Shingles were old, withering up, shriveling. There was an area where the water had been getting in and eating away, rotting the wood. Nice mushroom growing. I think I got a video of it some place in the back. And I replaced the roof. 2010. On top of replacing the roof, while I was at it, I figured I'd do a few changes like put a deck in. The municipality didn't like that too much. They thought, you're changing structure, you've got to get a permit for that. So I was delayed. Unfortunately, it went through the winter time. I couldn't complete the work. Well, it got the roof on at least. I didn't have to worry about it leaking or anything. But the soffit and the fascia and the siding had all been taken off. So that was left open. Fortunately, the squirrels had already gone and made their nests and everything wherever they were going to nest for the winter time, and they didn't bother me during the winter time. So, but come spring, I ended up with a guest. I had assumed, because when I first moved into this place in 2000, when I first bought this place, we had resident squirrels living in the attic, and I had to get a cage and trap them and get them out and close up the areas where they were getting in. Anyways, noise going on in the attic. I figured the squirrels. I put on some gloves because I know how vicious squirrels can be, especially a nesting mother. I figured I got to protect myself, and I put plenty of layers on and some heavy gardening leather gloves. And I went up there to check it out. I had this little flashlight and knew the general area to go to, so I went up there and I stuck the little flashlight on both. This is actually it. Anyways, I was up there in the attic and I was in that trying to find. I found the dark little mass nestled in among the insulation, which had been nicely piled up in our circular area. It was a rather large mass, and I went over to it and I stuck the flashlight in my mouth while I was in there. I picked one up, turned it over, and it opened up its mouth and let out a squeal. It was pretty loud, and first thing that struck me was the look of it. You know what? This is not a squirrel. And kind of small range you can see with the thing, and I kind of tilted it down and I saw little rings on its tail. I got some raccoons in the attic. Okay. I kind of sunk my spirits. I thought, geez, I got to get a cardboard box, the usual kind of rigmarole that people would probably normally go through. So because of all the stories I've ever heard, oh, they're destructive, they're going to destroy the place, they're going to wreck the place, do all kinds of stuff. Oh, yeah. So I was thinking about cardboard box, call the SPCA and all this sort of stuff and find a way of catching the mom or doing whatever I had to do. But it really hurt me to think about doing something like that when I guess I'm a little bit. You have those people they call sociopaths that have no empathy. I think I'm the opposite spectrum. I have a lot of empathy. I don't know what they call them, anti-sociopaths or what. Does somebody know if there's a name for that? Anyways, carry on. I said no. There was a section in one of the dormers because all the siding was off and the wood that was remaining was kind of like sponge almost. I could crush it with my fingers. Mama had made a nice hole in it that she could get into and made herself a nest in the attic. Had her babies, and they were there, and I decided, okay, I made it possible for them to come into the attic. They're my guests until they're old enough and she can move on. So I left them. And I came back down here, and a little while later I heard a lot more noise going on, and I got curious and I went back up there and I found that they were all gone. And I was rather disappointed. I kind of look forward to the idea of having a nesting mum of raccoons. They fascinate me. Well, most animals fascinate me. I'm always trying to make some sort of a connection, you know. But they were gone. Okay, so I came back down, cleaned up, went to bed. I hear from the other side of a wall beside my bed, near the head of my bed. She moved them from the upper part of the attic down to the lower part of the attic beside my bed. So, oh great, okay, I'll leave them alone. So I did. And over the course of weeks, I'm here on the weekends. I always hear the nighttime chatter. Mom gets up to go out and do her foraging and business. But about, I don't know how long it was, a period of time. I think it was March that I discovered them, and I think it was about 3 weeks later that I was gone to bed, and all of a sudden it was like 2 o'clock in the morning again, and I heard it crash and a squeal coming from in there. And I know the way that's set up in there is one section is storage and the other section is just a piece of attic that's unused. And I thought, oh geez, you know, they probably got into whatever's there and knocked something over, maybe got hurt. So I figured, okay, I gotta go and check it out to make sure nobody's hurt or anything like that. I was looking forward to any kind of excuse I could to get in there and check it out. But I went in there and found out what they had done was they used the one section, which I called the nursery, the unused section of the attic down there, as a nursery, and another section where I used for storage, which I ended up calling the common area. There was some Tupperware on some benches in there, and they were using one of the pieces of Tupperware as a bathroom, which was, as far as I was concerned, perfect. Unfortunately, they had knocked the Tupperware over and it leaked, so I had some cleaning up to do. There's a piece of corrugated cardboard, and the opening between the two sections was narrow enough, it was like 1.5 feet or something like that. It's very difficult to get through. It was about, how was it, 4 feet tall or something like that. Corrugated plastic I put in front of it, just to segregate, because Mom wasn't there right then. So just to segregate them off at the time, I just put the plastic there so I could do the cleanup. I took the Tupperware out of there, and I cleaned up the mess and everything, and scrubbed it as best as I could. And I got another thing that a kitty litter box actually that my sister used to use, and I cleaned it out and put fresh kitty litter in there, and I put it in there and put some of the fecal matter from the raccoons into that, hoping to get the idea that that's the bathroom. And also, I put something in there because I figured she'd know I was in there, and I just didn't want them to just try to move out. I figured I'd give them a little bit of an enticement and incentive to stick around. So I put a little kitty bowls of food in there, some kitten food actually that was left over from my sister. And I left that in there. And I was hoping to get it all cleaned up before Mama came back. I did not. And Mama was not a happy camper. And I'll tell you something, a mama raccoon is a scary fucking thing. Seriously. She was growling and snoring. I've heard big dogs do some growling. She'd put them to shame. She was scared. I thought I had a 500-pound raccoon in there. I was going to bust through that cardboard plastic I had up there, grab me by the throat and say, "You're not welcome here. Get out." She didn't. She kept on growling and snarling all the time I was cleaning up the rest of it. And then it came time for me to move the plastic to get out of there. So I, okay, ready? And moved it over, and she was just a growling. She was standing above her babies, and she was just a growling at me, looking at me. And she's big too. But funny thing though, big, you know, her body length was about the size of my length of my arm, you know. And you know, if you think about it in proportionality, you can imagine the same thing as a woman trying to protect her babies from a polar bear. It would be the same sort of proportions, I think. This little raccoon is growling and snarling at me, daring me to come in there. I just thought it was beautiful. I fell in love. But I'm trying to quiet her at the same time. Like I ever say, even when the plastic was up there, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. But she kept on snarling and growling and hissing, and I didn't know what to say to calm her or anything, and I just thought, you know, I've seen shows and they had raccoons. The only noise I've heard them make was, brrr. So I thought, okay. I did that, and she just, like a double take, she looked at me, and she stopped growling and snarling. She would still hiss now and then, but she stopped growling at me. She just looked at me. Okay, this is different. What's going on here? You know, so automatically, to me, that was a connection. We made a connection, and that was a beautiful thing. Anyways, I left her. I closed it up, and I was hoping the food would be enough of an enticement, and maybe I gave her the idea that she didn't have to worry. I hoped. Anyways, and I went off to bed, and I was very relieved to hear from the other side of the wall, crunch, 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 crunch. She was taken to the kitten food. So, gave her a little something. Anyways, the next day I went out to the pet shop to find out what raccoons ate, and I went to the grocery store, did a little shopping, get a variety of different things, walnuts and grapes and apples and peaches and banana, and I tried a lot of different things, and I found her favorite foods seemed to be two different things. The one she loves the most were green seedless grapes and walnuts. So she'd be eating those things, and it was funny the way she ate them. She'd go over to the bowl, and she wouldn't just stick her mouth and eat. She'd grab the grape and bring it to her mouth and eat it. I thought it was cute. Maybe I'll put some of the video up. But then I decided, well, I want to see what happens, and I had, you know, I can't resist. You know, I just went in there and I squatted her down and I put a grape in my hand and I held it out. And she comes, I held it out like this. You see that? Yeah, held it out like this. And she comes up and she looks at the grape, but she takes my whole thumb into her mouth completely. And when you dealing with animals, you learn, well, with dogs that I've dealt with before, I figured to try the same thing, but you look away because I get the impression the animal knows the eyes of their targeting system. So if you're not looking at them, they're not as apprehensive. So she took my thumb whole in her mouth while I was looking away. I didn't jerk away, I didn't pull away or anything like that, because she didn't bite down. She wasn't putting pressure. I didn't feel the sharpness of her teeth or anything. She just put her mouth over my thumb. And she wasn't licking it, she wasn't tasting it. And she sat there and she looked at me, and I know this because I ended up turning my head and looking at her, and she was looking up at me. And I just did my best raccoon query and said, "Brr." And about a second or so later, she seemed to change her mind, let go, and took the grape and ate it. That was beautiful. That was fascinating. It kind of makes me think of if you're going out on ice and you don't know its thickness or anything, you go and you step on it. You don't just walk out on it, you step on it and you put pressure on it in order to find out what it's going to do, so that if it's going to do anything, it will do it on your terms. And I think that's what she was doing. She wanted to find out what I was going to do, and if I was going to do anything, it would be on her terms, so that she'd be ready to react if she had to. She'd rip my thumb right off if she had to. That's my suspicion anyways. But since I didn't react in any violent fashion or fear or anything like that, we came to an understanding, I think. We connected. And I thought it was beautiful. She didn't trust me for a while at first, but after a little while she got to trusting me, and there was even a period of time there when she would At first, when the babies had come to check me out, she'd pull them back. Later on, she'd even go out and leave me with the babies, and she wouldn't worry. She knew I wasn't going to hurt them. She knew this. I know it. She knew it. And there was even a time I think she was laughing at me because there was a time when she was sitting at the back in the nursery watching, and the babies all of a sudden they come running over toward me, and I'm sitting there outside of the common area, and I'm looking back at her, and I'm looking at the babies, and I'm kind of looking at her. Come on, mom, do something. Will you? I wasn't speaking, but I was just kind of saying it with my eyes. And I got the impression on her from the way she was looking at me. She was just laughing at me. I think she was just looking at me and getting a kick out of my helplessness with a bunch of baby raccoons. There was even one point that was kind of interesting where she came over when she was taking a grape out of my hand. And then she took my hand with both of her hands, and she turned my hand over. She wasn't sniffing, tasting, or looking for more food. I got the impression that she was actually checking out my hand, like, hey, these are a lot like mine, and I thought that was really fascinating. But that was part of the experience I had with this, and I was really enthralled by it and taken by it, and it was an opportunity I'm glad I didn't miss. Sometimes I don't think we give animals the credit they deserve. They can even be courteous. She used to go to the bathroom around, she stopped going to the bathroom in the common area, but she was going in the nursery. But then I discovered she was going in the nursery, and while she was out, I scooped up her waste and I put it into the litter box. And she got the message from that, not to go in the bathroom. I didn't scold her or anything like that. And I've seen this happen before with a dog. But she stopped going in the house. She started going outside. Now that's courtesy. That's consideration. She got a message. And I know she didn't go anywhere in the house because I looked all over. And there was no more for a period of time after that. From that point on, there was no more in the house. Basically, all I'm saying is make an effort. Try to connect. It's worth it. Thanks. Take care.